All right, I'm going to call this Tuesday, June 25th council workshop to order. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I've been under the weather, so this is not just my sexy voice, but it's been a fun week for me. We are removing item 4, I believe, Kim, that's correct, because we do not have that ordinance. So we'll start with item 1, Operations Committee project request. Butch?
No, the first one, yeah, that's it, sorry about that. I changed the header, but that's fine, I can pick up on that. Morning, council, I'm George LeCompte, chairman of the Operations Advisory Committee, and we have
Rodney Kidd, chairman of the Bike Pit Committee.
And Cindy Gunn, chair of the Beautification Committee.
And we're here to walk you through an idea that we came up with that we felt like was good complementary solution to go with the upcoming repaving project on Lake Park when that happens. And we would think about it as an after amenity, right, after that. So, how do we scroll here? So, what this is a joint proposal between Operations Advisory, Beautification, Bike and Pedestrian Committees for pedestrian benches placed strategically along Lake Park Boulevard between Snowscut Bridge and Alabama to follow the planned repaving project. And we're proposing as a 100% privately funded project endeavor. Okay. So what we're asking today is support from town council to move forward and direct staff to collaborate with us so that we can just define what that could be. Okay. We did have a breakout session between the committees. We had 18 people present over at the Rec Center Arts and Crafts Room, and we did notice, and we had 3 people from the public in attendance as well. And what I really asked the group to do is let's just come up with an outline of what this is. And so one of the things we talked about was a supplier. Obviously, the town has used a supplier in the past to do benches at the boardwalk, and some of them have flip backs and some of them are fixed. And they're of a certain construction and a certain length. The ones at the boardwalk, and you can see an example of it at Rimini's. There's one that's really long, it's almost 12 feet long. We're proposing for that we do work with somebody at staff and figure out who is an appropriate supplier. And if the parameters are that it needs to be bid, you know, to select who would supply these benches, or, you know, if there's one in particular that the town would normally use because they've done all the others, then we would figure that out. But I think realistically, we said, you know, there's no harm in getting 2 bids, 3 bids, and then the ones that are the best construction, the longest living and the best fit for our town, we would do a selection or make a recommendation, and then again, town council could make a decision what to do. So we did come up with a bench size, and we're proposing a fixed back bench, so not the swing back, you know, where you can change sides of where you're sitting, but only 5 feet long. And and their reasoning was, we don't, if these are along the street and throughout the Snowscut all the way to Alabama, we don't want people taking naps on it, so we don't want to get too comfy, right? So 5 foot long and appropriate depth, so also people, you know, aren't just taking naps. Okay, it's really intended to encourage pedestrian walking throughout the town, but if you get winded or if you get overheated, take a seat, and we would be thinking about shade as well, you know, for that. We also talked about what color would we, you know, do. We did arrive at, you know, we should just come up with a color palette and choose one colors for consistency so that it's not, you know, crazy, right? So it's just a good conservative, light color that is colorful, but maybe just choose one color. The reason we also want a lighter color so it's not heat absorbing. If it's dark, you're going to sit on it and maybe burn your thigh if you're in shorts in the hot summer. The other thing is, how do we want to install this? Do we want to, work through the idea of a concrete pad around the bench? And we really said, let's try to keep it simple and affordable and just do little footings that the bench would, rest on and be anchored to. And that would be minimalist and low maintenance, okay? The other thing is, people aren't drawing chalk, designs on the thing. It's not a color, a palette to do art. The other thing related to this would be bench locations and refinements. So this is where we're really talking about, we came up with a list of 12 potential locations between Snow's Cut and Alabama, and the thought process would be generally, strategically position them, think of interpolation, right? 7 benches to start with as a pilot, and they would, again, be privately funded, and every 1/10 of a mile, every 1/4 of a mile, just where it makes sense and there's no resting area, right? So we really want to encourage people to walk throughout the town along Lake Park, because we want to feature this in a visible area. So we think along Lake Park is an ideal, location. And so with that said, it's really a 5-foot bench mounted on a footer, not too big and not too small. And we do intend at some point to have shade, because that's the purpose of the benches in the first place, is to encourage people to walk throughout town. The other feature that we did come up with is that the bench would have a single hoop bike rack, okay? Just a single hoop, maybe tastefully at the back of it, so that when people are riding their bike, they could actually lock it up and go to Publix or go to get a Subway or whatever they want, wherever that happens to be. That would also encourage, not driving and parking all over the place if we're encouraging pedestrians. So with that said, I've got also Matt Shuttleworth, who's a member of Operations Committee. So I'm going to give up the floor to Rodney and Cindy.
Good morning, council. Hope you're doing well today. How about that rain last night? Yay. Just building on this, the beautification committee kind of spawned several years ago, as you all know, and I was on operations at the time, and operations asked, since I was, I guess, me, to go over and be part of that. And these two committees work so good together. There are things that operations does, things that beautification does, and bike ped. They all kind of blend and work together. So this is playing on sort of our 25 Lake Park paving program. And we talked about this in our master plan way back in the day when we presented it to you guys. And when Butch was talking about doing this, I thought, yes, this will build on that plan and maybe looking at it from a different angle. And hopefully you all will consider approving this. We have a lot of walkers in town now with the north end of town building up like it has. A lot of our commercial is that way. We just have a lot of walkers that are coming from that area, coming south, and coming from the south, coming north. One of the things that beautification is planning to work with on this is in the benches are phase 1. The shade for the benches, we're going to look at trees, planting trees or some sort of shade for phase 2. We don't know yet how that'll all play out, but again, we've picked out some places that these benches will serve a purpose, serve a good purpose, and there are some things that we need to do. 25 is getting close. I don't know how much communication you all are having with the DOT on what their paving plans are. I think it would be a good idea to kind of share that with this committee particularly, so and our plans can kind of fall into place if you also choose to approve this. Thank you.
Do you want to touch on the idea of benches with the bike racks?
Yeah, Rodney Kidd with the Bike Ped Committee. We like this idea because it does encourage biking and walking as a community, but we also like the idea of adding the bike loops so that there's more bike parking in the community as well. So we do appreciate and like the idea of this project.
Thank you, Rodney.
Yeah.
Maybe we transition to the next page then. You'll notice that we took some time to brainstorm on where would be the likely locations. And we came up, we want to pilot 7. And again, what we're thinking about doing is, and that's why we need help of council to say, work with staff, is we want to privately fund this. And we know that the ideas of benches at the boardwalk were done with through private funding. That's the same thing. We want to leverage that approach. So no town funds would be used, including the installation. So we would come up with an estimate of what the bench would cost, the installation, and then come up with a top 10 list or top 20 list. I was already told that there's a waiting list for bench sponsorship at the benches at the boardwalk. So this would be a natural segue, to leverage that as an approach. You'll notice that I put asterisks next to a few locations. One of the ideas was, I'll just maybe go from the top. So Greenway at the end near Alabama, that Greenway has a stop there, and then Alabama starts. Then at the end of Alabama, there's a bathroom. That would be another likely place, and that's the first place that would be facing Lake Park. So then Golden Sands, near the crosswalk, we're trying to think of, really strategic locations that encourage walking and resting, right? And then the pump house at the lake area, there's some town-owned property right there, right at the lake house. We could maybe strategically put a bench there and loop. The Hang 10 area, Winter Avenue and Lake Park near Hoplite and Burt's. There's going to be a crosswalk there eventually, we think, okay, on Winter. Jersey Mike's, proximity frontage area. I would maybe take a second and let you talk, Matt, about some conversation you had with the folks.
Oh, okay, proximity.
Briefly.
Matthew Shuttleworth, Operations. I know a couple of the guys who are heading the proximity build, and they just needed a more logistical side showing what the bench would look like, how much it would cost them, but they're open to the idea of 2 of them because they're doing an 8-foot sidewalk. So they would either do it facing proximity or facing the road. I'm sure that's really up to them, but they are open to the idea of 2 of them, and they would fund them.
Awesome. Yeah. That was sort of a temperature check, maybe just ask a couple businesses and say, how would you respond to something like that? And so there was a favorable response. Then the market vendor parking lot area, there's a new playground there. I don't think we're at a surplus of benches, so we could do one, there. We're always recommending closest as possible to Lake Park for visibility of the project, right? And then Michelangelo's area, which is closer to Snow's Cut Bridge. And then the other idea was Friends Nursery, and I put an asterisk there because that's probably as far away from Lake Park as you can think. But we do think it encourages at the beginning of the Greenway that idea. You got one at the beginning of the Greenway, at the nursery, and at the end at Alabama. So with that, our call for help is council to direct that this is a good idea, that we should maybe identify 1 or 2 people on staff to work with us, the committees, so that we can define the cost and, select a supplier, potential supplier, and proceed. And we wouldn't even start until the end of the paving project, because there's no sense in putting benches in places where there'll be trash and dirt piled up everywhere because of the paving project. So that's really the call to action that we have from council, is we did want to want to play by the rules, and we don't want to bother staff unless council says it's appropriate. Okay?
Butch, I have a question on,
Sure.
and I'm not sure if it's a question for you or for Jeremy or Ed. I'm not sure who would have the answer, but I know when we started looking at putting the sidewalk from the lake to Carolina Sands, it seemed like the most simple thing. And then it turned into a lot of complications, having to do with right-of-way acquisition, having to do with what you could put beside the road. You know, it was a stack of regulations. So what seemed very simple to me turned out not to be so. How does this play into that? I mean, do we know that we can even put benches on the side of Lake Park Boulevard? I'm just asking, I don't know.
The division's environmental, Division 3, I believe, is what New Hanover County is. Their environmental engineer, they have a set state of plans and things, what you can put and what you can't put. I would say that's who, if staff comes in on this, they would have to deal with them.
Do we have, Bruce, do we have any history of, I'm not trying to
No.
torpedo it, I'm just trying to understand what, I've already been bitten. I lost 3 fingers on the sidewalk, so I don't want to lose the other 2.
No, we would have to run anything like this by DOT. I know they don't, maybe not want to encourage, especially in the faster speed areas, encourage gathering or standing or stopping anyway. But it would be a DOT, they'd have to approve anything we placed in the right-of-way along Lake Park.
I remember during the Greenway build that there was a desire on the part of the Army to not congregate
Right.
in many places. So it's somewhat apples and oranges, but I can imagine that that's what it is. The speed reduction areas, maybe there's a that's
Right.
probably really what you guys are, staff would come in really on something, advise on placement and
Setbacks.
distance.
On what side of the, so, you know.
Because that's the official communications to DOT, as we know. It's not
Yeah,
one of us.
and we did brainstorm a little bit on that. If you have, consider that proximity is gonna put in probably 120 feet of, sidewalk. The placement, is it between the sidewalk and the curb of the street, or behind the sidewalk? And then, and that's the reason why we thought, if we get business sponsorship and get their buy-in to buy, the bench and install it, there wouldn't be much resistance to putting one on the business side of the sidewalk in front of them, because they're gonna be having a plaque on that bench that they sponsored the bench, and that's a good promotion for them.
I would assume DOT, if anything, would require them to be on the other side of the sidewalk.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I've always loved little towns where you drive in and you have benches. It makes it homey, right? I don't understand the phase 1, phase 2 piece. Personally, I would do it all together. No one's going to sit on a bench without trees. I'll tell you that right now. Do it all at one time. Maybe you go down to 4 benches, try out 4 benches, but surround them with healthy trees initially.
More mature trees.
Yeah, you need some 8-footers or something around these benches. But yeah, big trees. And
Okay. I mean, that could be part of what we,
The DOT
when we
vote,
interact
plant
with.
trees beside the road.
well, once again, that's a DOT question.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Which
Can't
brings up
imagine
a
them
point.
letting you
Yeah, if you
plant
put
a
a
tree.
bench and you can't plant trees,
I mean, I'm not trying to speak for the DOT, I'm just saying, I've been bitten by this
consideration.
before, is they do not like immovable objects
yeah.
within certain distance of the road.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules are, but I know.
And so, we hearken back to Cape Fear Boulevard, myrtle trees, all along the Cape Fear Boulevard. That's right along the road frontage. But I think, you could look back and say, maybe that was too close to the road too, right? But I think that was done for an effect, maybe to slow people down, right? So I think that's part of, the process of defining, timing and where to put the benches and where to put trees for shade. We agree. We always thought that we need to have a shading function, to the bench. It's just when do you do it? And, since this is part of the repaving project that we're proposing, and we wanted to pilot 7. If you think about that stretch of road, I didn't bring a map, but it's pretty lengthy. So 7 would be spread out pretty far. So it's just a matter of choosing the right location that is not going to be, finding resistance because it's going to be in front of somebody's, front backyard, whatever. So I think if we leverage businesses, they're going to be for it because they'll want to sponsor that, and you know, that.
So- Yeah, so Matthew brought up proximity, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
Have we approached any other, because there's a lot of, Hang Ten, Jersey Mike's. I mean, you've got a lot of restaurants out there. Have we approached any of them? Just
No, we didn't want to get too far
I
ahead
got
of
you.
ourselves,
Understand.
and just assume that we're going to run and then get kind of corrected.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to play by the rules and say, is this a good idea, favorable idea, and could we work with a staff member? Our natural choice is Eric Jelinski because he knows how to do the funding process, the private funding process. There's already a 501(c) that does the funding of the benches at the boardwalk. And so that would be a natural fit, and he's also Park and Rec, so he's got a little bit of understanding of what works. So, not ruling any other staff member out, but I was just thinking.
Mr. Mr. Mayor, I think the first step would, for us to see what DOT would allow before we start assigning other, like, just see what
Yeah.
their rules are.
Yeah, I
Start.
think that's kind of where I'm at, is first off, I appreciate you guys thinking outside the box. I agree with Jay. I think there's some positive visual aspects to it, but I just don't know what I don't know. It's kind of how I'm feeling about it. It's not what you've presented, it's what do I not know. So
Sure.
I think your request is how do we go find that stuff out? So
Right.
I would, I'm certainly comfortable with asking, and you guys can agree or not agree, I'm certainly comfortable asking staff to kind of do a little bit deeper dive and tell us what we can and can't do, and then give that feedback to these guys, and then they can, maybe we can do all this, or maybe we can do none of it, but whatever, then you can adjust your plan based on what we learn. Does that work? Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Everybody-
And and you can see we're trying to do minimal,
Yeah.
approach and incremental, so.
Yeah.
I haven't said anything yet, but will say that I've supported all day. Some of the spots you picked are admittedly in the future because projects will be done. Some I'm looking at could be approached right away. I'm with you. I love the private funding part.
Me too.
Yeah, I think people would like that.
Yeah.
Were you thinking a design similar to the boardwalk for uniformity, or?
Similar, and,
Yeah.
what we have to figure out is, do we do natural wood or do we do the polywood, because that's a painting endeavor, but if it's already injected into the materials, there's not much painting involved.
Low maintenance would be
Yeah.
good.
So that's part of the discovery, but we just needed, a go, no go, so that we don't waste our time or anybody else's time.
So Bruce, next step is you guys will get with DOT, kind of understand what you can and can't do, what the parameters are, and then give that feedback. You going to come back to us or just go directly to them?
I'll send it directly to them. I think
Okay.
staff has a meeting, I don't know if Jeremy, if it's this week or next week with DOT on the sidewalk anyway, so we can
Perfect.
pose those questions.
So, out of curiosity, how often do you guys meet as the
Once
committees
a month,
together?
the day before.
No,
once a
the
week.
whole, the joint committee.
The joint.
Oh, we've only met
Once,
once
just
because we
once.
didn't want to
'Cause they have
continue
to
to meet,
Announce that.
Oh,
we
that's
just, really, we wanted to outline it for you, so you could have something to think about and direct us to stop or go,
But this,
Yeah.
I think this is a culmination result of the meeting that we asked them to
Yeah,
have
yeah,
together.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, just one thought was, that came to mind is like there in front of proximity, if you're going to run into a right-of-way issue in some of these locations, I'm sure. But if the business sponsors it, technically, it might be on their property,
Right, right.
which removes that
We
right
think
of way.
there's some natural fits,
Yeah.
Jersey Mike's and the Hang Ten and
Yeah,
the Vault, all kinds of natural fits, and we know that there's a lot of people that it's
Right.
appealing to,
it's always nice if it's on their property, then you don't have to go
That's
by
right.
DOT rules.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay,
Thank you, guys.
so thank
Hey,
you.
Rodney, let's not forget to make a plug for this with the new bike ped plan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
On the
We've
ninth.
got the bike ped plan that's being revamped right now, so something like this would be very,
Be good to
very well.
identify that as a goal in the plan, to
Yep.
have places for people to rest.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
Is now a good time to ask Mr. Shuttleworth to tell us all about that pickleball tournament you entered? We were all dying to hear.
No, as the parliamentarian, it would not be a good time.
Okay, so the
Alright,
next
but-
part of the presentation,
Well, there's more.
yeah. Yeah, we're presenting two things. So Ed, where's that at? So this, in the material I sent Kim last night, just to make sure she had the very latest, you'll notice that I put the name of the other chairs involved with the benches. And then, for this one, I added, Jeff Hogan, okay, because obviously there's a connection with information kiosk and marketing, okay, and he's the chair for marketing. So this is an idea that we have been, let's say, marinating for a few months now. And when we knew that the marina was going to be redone, we said, what can we do? What value can we bring to up the game in Carolina Beach? And so this is all about that. And so, you know, it's a visitor information kiosk. Currently, we do have kiosks at the boardwalk and the lake, but those are placards and they're not electronic and they have to be swapped out from time to time, right? Do we still have those?
No, the lake one is,
It's electronic.
yeah.
Okay. So let me,
They're, they're supposed to be,
It's
re-
not there
haven't been
anymore.
removed. They're on schedule to be removed, haven't been removed yet.
okay.
So they're gone.
So what we're talking about is really elevating the technology for a kiosk at the marina. And it would be Wi-Fi enabled. You've seen them around resorts. You've seen them at Broadway at the beach. And you say, you are here, and there's a touch screen. It'll have the map of the Carolina Beach, or the island, really. And it'll be a touch screen with click stream tracking, right? It's nothing new as far as technology. It's out there everywhere. San Antonio Riverwalk has one, okay, several. And the idea is that it'd be a more modern approach to providing information to the public when they come visit the town. And we want this to be, we think that this would be a natural fit for ROT funding, okay? Tourism. So one of the features, there'd be a you are here, and when you touch the screen, it would say what the amenities around town are. It would also give you a parking locator for town parking from where you are. So immediately, you're gonna be able to focus in on where's the parking that is town parking. The other thing it would have is town events. So if you imagine, you know, a 60-inch screen, whatever the size of that touch screen needs to be, obviously it needs to be weather resistant, and those are very common nowadays. The current week's events. So I get here on Friday, just got into that parking lot by the marina. I see tourism information, okay? And I go across and I take a look at that. In the current week, there's a concert at the lake, and there's a barbecue thing going on over by Publix, and another one down by the Fort Fisher. Okay? That also has, we're here this week, and what did we miss, and what maybe is coming up in 90 days or 6 months. So we just simply have the calendar of events. So now I know what's happening right now, and I know what's coming up, you know, for the year. And that would be, because it's Wi-Fi enabled, it could all be managed from town hall, right? So you don't have to have somebody going out there and plugging into it and servicing it, okay? The other thing it would have is visitor guides for a fun and safe experience. So we came up with ideas that we could teach the public when they visit how to avoid getting ticketed, how to have a good weekend and not have a bad weekend, right? So pet waste rules, right? Sometimes people just don't know. They should know, but they just don't. Pets on the beach rules, noise guidelines, right? You can't have a party on your deck after 11 o'clock or you're gonna get a visit, right? And also, one of the last ones we came up with is, what's the policy, or what do we encourage when you're at the beach and you dig a 4-foot hole in the beach? Fill it in before you leave, that kind of thing, so you don't break somebody's ankle or you break the axle of the trash truck on the beach, right? So those are just common ways to avoid having a bad experience proactively. Then, on the right here, this would also have Chamber of Commerce. So we want to promote businesses on the island that are chamber businesses and organizations. So Chamber of Commerce businesses. And you've seen this as well. You see Broadway on the beach and other towns and other tourist locations. They've categorized all the happenings, in their location. So fishing charters, ecotourism and entertainment charters, hotels and motels. When you click on these things, the value of having it on this kiosk, now you're actually able to track what are the popular things people are interested in and really put your focus a lot on that. You can also do the reverse. What are people not clicking and we're not maybe doing a good job of promoting, right? So as people go down for adults and kids, we got miniature golf, we got the escape room, both indoor and outdoor things you can do if it's raining or it's just too hot, beach vendors, bicycle rentals. So those are just some ideas. Last night I got a call or an email and something I didn't think about, but things like nonprofits that are part of chamber, right? So a mural project or other organizations that we want to really treasure and promote. And people just don't maybe know about because they're just visiting. So if you can imagine mural project and you click on it and now something comes up on that screen and it just shows all the places that they've just recently done, right? And then kind of swipe through and look at it. So that's really the concept of the kiosk. And we did choose the marina because just strategically, if you think about where this green space is, and I know it's different than this picture, but when people come to town, they're either going to go right where they're renting or they're going to take a left turn. And a lot of, how many hundreds of people go right by the marina, take a left on Canal to go to the north end? Hundreds. But if there was a huge kiosk right here that was visible and said, town information, or however you want to brand it. Oh, honey, I'm going to go to the north end, check that out. Why don't you step out and see what's going on in town, right? And I'll come back and pick you up in 10 minutes or whatever. And the other thing is, we don't know where to park, right? Those kind of things. So that was just an idea. We felt like it's a good high traffic area where people could get information and go on their merry way and have a good, visit. Other potential locations could be the lake or the boardwalk. We want to really focus on the marina because we think that's the first best place to do it. Got already redone a lot of electrical, so there's probably electrical everywhere, and it is pretty central to the town. So that's really the idea, and just like the pedestrian idea, we think because we're thinking ROT funds should be able to fund this project, we need, and marketing and operations would work together if you guys choose to have us to work with staff to figure that out and really figure out, okay, does it need to have an enclosure on 3 sides so you can walk in, make sure that it is visible and located where the town wants it, and then just go through those features, and really nail that and what's the technology, okay? So that's the ask, again, is for council to say, hey, this is a great idea, and we'd like you to explore this with a staff member or two
to define what that could be.
So a couple of thoughts I had on that one was, there's a couple other things in play that are really, in my mind, tied to this. Number one, you got the Centennial Committee putting what's going to be at that park in that area together. They should probably get involved. But really what I was thinking was the CVB this is really in their turf. We tried this, right? We put in 2 kiosks. It was going to be free. It was going to be advertiser paid. For whatever reasons, they were a failure. Doesn't mean this will be a failure, just that didn't work. No one advertised on them. There was really no content management. Nobody was in charge of them. I am pretty sure that the CVB is working with the city of Wilmington on the Riverwalk makeover, and I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they're looking at kiosk there. It would be awesome if we could piggyback, if they're going to do that, and they have staff, that's their job, they keep websites and stuff up all day. I mean, that's what they do. It would be interesting to see what they're doing, and maybe we could piggyback off of their, in the end, have them manage content for us, which is what they do on all our websites. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you've also got the CVB Visitor Center trying to find a home. There's a lot of moving pieces around this subject.
Yeah. And
So,
Thoughts, Bruce?
yeah, we did have the 2 called SUFA signs that were very similar to this. They weren't as interactive as were proposed here. We had one at the lake and one at Boardwalk. And then the third place was going to be, after the test run on these, was going to be the marina. The 2 we had did not get much interaction. We had data that looked and had some stuff that tracked a little bit. Got 0 advertising. These were supposed to pay for themselves, and they did not. And they're not. They were solar, which would save some money, but they're not cheap. There's different types out there, but none of them are very cheap. But yeah, we didn't have a successful go run at the first one, but maybe the marina's different. We could try it again at some point, but they will, something we'd have to budget for, whether ROT or not.
I'd
but-
like to see what CVB's doing for me before. Just because the fire one failed. I mean, just my own watch of those. It was interesting. I was at the lake one day, and like even Butch thought the sign was static because it looked static, but it really wasn't. But the people I saw try to use it, they go touch it.
Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening because it wasn't touched. People have,
Right.
So I'm thinking maybe that's just a technology issue, not a.
Yeah, and we
know,
did
well-
update it on a regular basis with calendar of events and everything going
Yeah,
on in
I did
town,
see
and
that.
it just, yeah.
But do you agree? I mean, it's the CVB. I mean, they're the ones who are putting out the information online. They're our marketing people, right? They're doing this whole fleet of stuff for us. Seems they would be the right people to keep it up to date and put events on there because they keep an events calendar. Because if staff does, nothing against staff, it's just never going to be. There's only so much you can do in a day, right?
So I do think the more information we get out to the public, the better, right? I mean, there's no argument there. Location, to me, I think the marina is a terrible spot, personally, because, I mean, how many people go to the marina? 5% of visitors? I know it will change once we get that art down there, but still, not a lot of people go to the marina. It's just a fact. We have a lot in downtown where the chamber can take advantage of it, or someone can take advantage of it, putting a trailer in there, maybe put your screen inside the trailer and have human contact. See, that's what makes the difference. You can go up and read a screen, and it's great. But if you have human contact, people actually talking to you, telling you where to go, and I think it makes a big, big difference, personally.
So are you thinking you would put it outside, wherever this visitor center goes? I know that's still up in the air. Where the visitor center goes, it would be nice to be near that, because then if the visitor center is manned, which it is for a lot of the day, I can ask a person. But if it's not, there would be an interactive board there.
Outside of Fork and Cork, we have room.
Raminis.
Rimini's. We have room where the rides are, but no one would hear you.
Easy
You
now.
can talk as loud as you want.
So Butch, I think what I would, I don't know what, Mike, but I don't want to jump in first.
I actually, right down there at the marina, we've got that, those kind of drop-off parking that's right there.
Yeah.
So, but I am thinking forward to the marina with the I Love CB art,
Yeah.
and it might become more of a stop-through place. So I don't think this is terribly out of line to be there. I always come back to, what are the odds of TDA allowing this to be marketing dollars, not straight ROT money? That's the question.
Well, that was why I pushed it to CVB.
Yeah, so see, you think
If I
with,
pushed it
Yeah.
to CVB and make it an add-on to what they're already doing, managing a set of boards.
'Cause
We
we
have-
always spend our ROT.
We have marketing dollars.
Well, I know, and lots of it, and we can spend our regular ROT money 3 times over. So I'm always looking at ways to use that marketing money for this sort of thing. Right? They did agree to allow us to use that money for the I Love CB art. Right? Am I correct when I'm
Yeah.
saying that?
Yep.
So, that may actually dovetail nicely down at the marina. It's a place where you can easily stop in. You can park your car and get out for 15 minutes and take a snap. And
I don't know how you would ever put it there, but it would be the ideal place for the Welcome Center because there's drop-off parking where you could stop and go ask a question, but I just don't know. how
Obviously,
to
that's
do it.
still to be determined as we sort out what the Centennial Park's going to look like.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
While we're on the topic, if you don't mind my asking, it's related, but like would the I Love CB sign would be approved. Now, I haven't been down there really scoped out the sight lines, but one thought is that it might work better to have a viewing platform down there so you can see further down the way.
That's been
Any-
talked about.
Yeah,
Any chance of TDA covering that as part of the, considering it would be part of the I Love CB sign?
can always ask.
Can always ask, right?
You don't know till you ask.
I know, I just want to plant that seed, and I think that
I'm used to being told no, so.
it can't hurt to ask.
I-
So this, to me, remains to be seen as it coalesces down there.
Yeah. I was just going to end with, for me, Butch, I think there's a place for what you're trying to do, and there's a technology for it. And I don't think we got it right the first time we took the path we did because it was free, right? And, or something,
was supposed to be.
was supposed to have been
Supposed to
free. It didn't turn out to be free. I would suggest maybe getting Jeff Hogan, who's marketing committee, and someone from your group, and I certainly can help facilitate that if you want, to just sit down with the CVB first and say, hey, what are you guys doing in downtown Wilmington for information and wayfinding boards? Because I'm pretty sure that's on their project plan.
Right.
And then if we understood what they were doing, then there's a good chance we could say, hey, we would like one of those at Carolina Beach.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that solves my biggest concern is content management over time. Because if it's not relevant and changing, it just becomes another sign that people walk
That's
past.
right. That's right.
It has to be valuable. So, you okay? Is that okay with everybody? I mean, I think that's the natural next step is to understand what they're doing. But I think there's a place for what you're trying to do. I just a little gun shy after the last time, but that's not your problem.
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
make sense? What
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Now, I like the CVB idea because you're right about content management, and it seems more likely that we could slide it in as a marketing expense.
That's how
100%
you
agree.
certainly
Like I
get
said, we have lots of marketing dollars.
100% agree. Thank
Okay,
you.
Well, I appreciate your time, and,
Thank you.
Well-
So we got you a path forward, right? You're good. Next step on the benches is we got to first figure out what the rules are.
right.
Right, that's the next step. And on this one, Jeff has contacts CVB, but if you need my help, I'm happy to. help
Okay,
you.
then I'll contact Jeff, and I'll name drop the CVB, and we need to get a meeting with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Or
think
phone call.
CVB would be all about it.
I think
because
it'd be all about it.
They'd be able to use it to
I
point
got
people
my
up to
fingers
Wilmington.
crossed that they say, hey, we're ordering 8 of these. It'll just be 9.
Okay, good.
That'd be awesome. Convention Visitors Bureau. So this is where government acronyms get you in trouble. So the New Hanover County Tourism Development Authority. is a county board that is mandated in state, by the state legislature to manage ROT dollars. So that consists of hoteliers, the mayors are on it. That board manages all that money. They also have the staff of the TDA, not the board. The staff of the TDA is called the Wilmington Convention and Visitors Bureau, Wilmington and Beaches Convention and Visitors Bureau. So this is part of being in government. You have to learn all these acronyms. But same people, but we really use TDA and CVB kind of interchangeably. But the CVB, I think of as the marketing folks up there. So that's where, that makes sense? But good question. That's the beauty of a workshop. Can actually answer a question. Next up is the final draft of the UDO.
Good morning, Mayor, Town Council. At the July 9th Town Council meeting, you have scheduled a public hearing to adopt for the Unified Development Ordinance, the UDO. And council requested, before we got to that point, is to get a little bit more familiar with is at the workshop, present the overview of the changes. No action is being requested of you today other than just answer any questions and to obtain feedback that you may have. The Planning and Zoning Commission has worked over 18 months on this document. They have recommended approval, what you have before you. I would like to introduce Wes McLeod, who's been a super assistant on this and help. And he will give an overview of those changes.
Wes, can I give a quick one on? So Wes is with, since you asked this question, there's a reason I want to do this. Wes is with the Cape Fear Council of Governments. We are a member of that organization. We pay some dues, I don't know what it is, every year. And they provide, the Cape Fear Council of Government provides a lot of services to the community, around homeless. I'm going to forget it sitting here. But one of the things that we utilize a lot are their legal and planning resources. So when you hear the COG, Cape Fear Council of Government, so we'll use that term a lot of times, the COG, that's who Wes is with. So I just wanted to, I forget that people who don't live in these acronyms don't know what they are. So Wes?
That's okay, Mr. Mayor. Frankly, if someone asks me what I do, I really just try to avoid the topic. Thank you all for having me this morning. Jeremy, thank you for the introduction. Jeremy's correct. We, in fact, started this process all the way back in July 2022. I know some of you are thinking, well, that's a crazy amount of time, but that's actually the amount of time that we anticipated this would take. It is no simple task to go through the entirety of a local government's development ordinances, review them with staff, review them with an advisory committee. In this case, it was a planning and zoning commission, and make sure that all the regulations and in any modification to them align with what staff believes is administratively sufficient and what the policy direction is of the Planning and Zoning Committee. So it is a substantial undertaking, and so it's been a pleasure to work with your staff and with your Planning and Zoning Commission. They have been worked diligently along the way. With that, you have a large amount of material in front of you. To the degree that you've read through it, fantastic. To the degree that you have not, that's okay too, because it's all been read through a number of times. I will quickly point out a couple of the major changes. You should have a memo here that was prepared by staff that was based on some information that we sent over. First thing, the town at present has a series of code chapters that relate to zoning, subdivision, stormwater. They're all separate of each other. And so as part of this process, we're tasked with consolidating all of those code chapters into one document. And so that is what is termed your Unified Development Ordinance. It'll be the first one that the town of Carolina Beach has. There's some benefits to having everything under one document. In particular is that you can have an overarching set of definitions and administrative procedures. This doesn't necessarily help the everyday citizen, but it helps staff and the development community with understanding the town's rules and regulations. Of course, you have staff here always to help answer questions for folks and help administer the code. There's a host of bullets here. The things that I just want to point out here briefly, and frankly, the majority of the time, depending on how much time we're here, I want to get your questions and comments and feedback. But what we have done is again, I stated prior, we've consolidated all of the procedures, roles, and responsibilities into one article. That's Article 2. That contains all the Planning and Zoning Commission roles and responsibilities, Town Council, Board of Adjustment, et cetera, and also outlines all of the different approval processes. So if someone wants to get a zoning permit, if someone wants to have a subdivision plat approved, all that's contained in one article. We have revised the table of permitted uses and consolidated a number of uses to help it be more clear for the development community. We've also identified a number of uses that needed additional standards or additional regulatory oversight. For example, commercial parking lots are now a conditional zoning. Should this be adopted, someone will have to apply for a conditional zoning approval in order to have that use put into place. Two of the more substantial changes are, for the first time, the town is going to have an impervious coverage limitation. So at present, the town has what's called a lot coverage limit. That's more of a bulk limit on how much above ground construction can go on site. Now, the town has established for the first time, proposed to, a limit on the amount of impervious coverage, concrete, et cetera, that can go on a lot. And that proposed percentage is at 65%, and that's based on on-site, site surveys, understanding how much impervious coverage generally is on existing lots. Yes, sir.
Yeah, great point that you're making there. Presently, an apron, driveway, any concreted area is not in the 60% of the property could be conceivably covered in concrete to include the 40%, in addition to, rather, the 40%
Correct.
lot coverage.
That's right.
Or the lot coverage, the structure.
That's right.
As a home, 2,000 square foot on a 5,000, so.
That's right.
So max then on a hypothetical, you get your 2,000 square foot structure on a 5,000 square foot lot, there's 25% of it, of the additional 60% could be impervious. Impervious to ensure, got it, okay.
Correct.
Clears things up pretty well.
Yep. That is, a fairly substantial change, but it's something that was, I believe, the number one priority of Planning and Zoning Commission, if I recall. In any case, that's been put into place. The second one is, for the first time, there's provisions put into place to limit the amount of fill or dirt that can be brought onto individual lots. And so across our region, I work a lot in our beach communities, and almost all of them do have fill regulations. Town of Carolina Beach does not. You are now going to have, should this be adopted, fill regulations that limit the amount of fill that can be brought onto a lot to even with your adjacent lot or no more than 1 foot above the crown of the road. However, if there are locations, for example, on Canal Drive that experience tidal flooding, there is an allowance for someone to submit under an engineer's sealed report, basically stipulating, hey, look, we need 2 feet of fill because on certain tidal events, we're going to be impounded by water. And so without trying to necessarily draw a line on a map to say where you can and can't put fill, our proposal allows basically that engineer to provide the evidence to support the amount of fill that's necessary on that site. I'm not saying that that will ultimately, in 2, 3 years, 5 years, be what's in place, but that's what we believe to be the best starting point for the town to address that unique
And that design
situation.
ensures that the responsibility still remains with the property owner, that that which falls upon his or her property is either collected, percolated, or conveyed to the right-of-way, and not as a nuisance to adjacent properties.
Yes, sir.
Was the intent.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the way it works currently, right, is we don't have fill regulations, but the only, basically you have to direct your stormwater to the nearest public conveyance, which is usually the street.
Correct.
But how you do that, right, you could fill, you can.
You
build
could
it
bring
about
in
5 feet
eight
if you wanna
feet
do
of fill if you wanted today.
Right, as long as your water doesn't go to your neighbors and goes to the nearest public conveyance.
Correct.
But this would now say you can't go, but how far?
1 foot above the crown of the road, or even with your
So even with your
neighbor.
neighbors, or if the road is crowned in front of you, 1
Yep.
foot above that.
Correct.
Okay, I like that.
And
sounds
that will
much
still
more reasonable
require a
than what we did.
design,
Yes, sir. And Brian is here
either case.
and has been involved as have staff. You know, we've had a substantial amount of discussion on how best to work through this, and I anticipate over the next year there's going to be modifications that you guys are going to see to nail down, you know, okay, this piece of this isn't working, or we need to add this provision, and that's natural. That's what happens when you put in place new regulations. There's some amount of time
It's
that
just an
requires.
understanding that it's still the responsibility of that property owner.
Correct. Yes, sir.
To deal with it.
Yes, sir. Let's see. Those are two of the more substantial items. We've also gone extensively through the off-street parking requirements. There is proposed for the first time now an update to off-street parking requirements to allow for up to 20% of the required parking spaces to be utilized by golf cart or LSV parking. The hope there is that, you know, the amount of space dedicated to parking can be reduced while still accommodating additional patrons to a non-residential establishment. Let me see. Further, there's a restriction on the future use of private streets in future subdivisions. We've removed the allowance of bonding or financial guarantees for the installation of infrastructure. We have also updated the wireless article in accordance with North Carolina general statutes. And apart from that, a lot of it is just administrative items that have been, you know, there's provisions in the ordinance that haven't been updated in some time, need additional clarification, et cetera. One other item I'll point out is that there is a proposal, and this is not in the memo, to increase the construction value for non-conforming situations to allow someone effectively to spend up to 100% of the value of the structure on improvements. Right now, it's if you spend over 50%, it triggers compliance with existing regulations. The Planning and Zoning Commission wanted to encourage or perhaps make it easier for some of the older structures to be renovated without having to be effectively torn down. And so there's an allowance to go from 50 to 100% of that structure value in making those improvements, which will be a change.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us. It sounds wrong to me at first when I first heard it, but then when you talk about why you're doing that, it makes total sense to me now, because you get these older homes and we want to see them refurbed, right? I mean, there are a lot of that's a lot of the character of the old beach cottages and things.
Yep.
But if we pinch them in on the rules where it's like if you spend so much money, you're going to have to, then they just tear it down and build a modern structure. And so I think that's the goal here, right, that P&Z has, is can we encourage them, give them a little more leeway to remodel and bring those things back together. Is that correct, Wes? I mean, that's what.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's absolutely correct. Certainly, you know, the intent for a number of folks will be they're just going to tear it down anyways, but this would at least give a little bit more room for them to consider making those necessary renovations to bring the structure into a condition that they feel comfortable wanting to live in, et cetera.
Right.
And I absolutely appreciate the effort to preserve our beach
I
cottages.
100% agree.
Yeah.
It's too easy to tear them down these days.
Yes, sir. I don't. The only additional comment I have, and then I'm absolutely here for as long as I need to be here to help answer any questions. When these documents are adopted, sometimes a local government, there's two options that you have. You can adopt them effective immediately, meaning that theoretically, say July 9th, you adopt it, the ordinance becomes effective immediately, or you can adopt them with an effective future date. It's adopted July 9th, it's effective in December. There's various benefits to both. One, if you adopt it immediately effective July 9th, that ordinance is going to, it's going to get put into place. There's going to be any of the things that we couldn't possibly conceive of understanding are all going to be discovered. If you adopt it with a future effective date, someone comes in with a proposal, they operate under the town's current ordinances. Staff can also see, okay, if this proposal is under the new draft ordinance, what does it look like? What are the things that perhaps need to be considered? So I just want to provide that information to you. I believe staff would prefer to have it effective immediately, but I don't want to necessarily speak for you all.
So can you repeat that? So if we adopt it now, it goes into effect in July?
Yes,
Or now?
You can adopt it with an effective
Well, we're not gonna
immediate
adopt it
date.
today, but-
Right.
You can't adopt it today.
Right, because of the
Right.
public hearing.
Yep.
But if we wait and adopt it later on, is it effective at that time, or does it go?
You would still adopt it July 9th, but you can have a future effective date.
Oh, I got
It's
you.
kind of
I got you.
funky. Basically, you've adopted, but say, hey, look, this isn't going to go into place and be utilized until 2 months or 1 month.
So
or,
let me ask you, maybe this is what you meant, but I'm going to take a different stab at it. The way my instinct tells me what I want to do is adopt this, make it effective immediately. But I don't think it's fair to any current development projects that are in process, that have already spent engineering time and whatever money they may have spent under the old ordinance. Is it possible that we adopt this, it goes into effect immediately, but then the old rules can still be applied for
sure.
6 months or something? You see what I'm saying? In other words,
It's already in process.
if I'm already in process, I want to, I don't want to take those developers and say, new rules,
No,
you
no,
gotta
no.
start over.
And Mr. Mayor, thank you for bringing that point up, and I should have clarified. Anyone that has an application in place right now, they're subject to the old rules. Now, they're allowed to choose. It's a permit choice statute. They can say, hey, actually, the new rules benefit me more, so I want to use those. Or they would just say, I've prepared everything in accordance with the existing rules, and I want to continue along that path. So
Yep.
we would not be shutting the door on anybody that has something in
So
place.
Jeremy, how much work does that create? A lot of, if we were to do something when we vote for this, if we were to say hypothetically that there's, these new rules are the new rules, but for anybody new, but we're going to allow whatever a reasonable window, 90 days, 6 months, whatever reasonable window is, that allows the developer to choose which rule set he wants to go under. Is that, I'm just worried that that's going to create a lot of churn in your department, or is that not a big deal?
We still would just simply or essentially enforce the current ordinance. With them knowing that, hey, this will be, changed and you'll have to meet the new criteria by this date.
Right. What that's to say that you're going to do a switch. What I was talking about is where you have them a window of time where they can choose whichever one. Basically, what Wes said, where they can choose if they've already put their plans together under the old ordinance. You can finish that project under the old ordinance for, I'm going to say 6 months. I'm making it up. I don't know what a good time frame is.
Well, again,
Or
if it's
there-
already been applied for, then you're underneath the old rules.
I know, but somebody may have been. I may have gone out there and bought a piece of property, and I have plans to build on it. I've been working on this all along. I have these assumptions of what the rules were, and now the rules are different. I'm just trying to be as flexible with the developers as possible. That's all. I mean, for me personally, go with these day one. I'm good, but I'm just worried about. I just hate to change rules on people who have already made investments without giving them some window to complete. You understand
I see what you're saying. If it was, my inclination would be to do a 30 days until it takes effect. So if you've been working on engineering plans for your
Get your
new
permit.
house, you got 30 days to hurry up and get that
You're
stuff
closer to it
applied
because
for.
you work in this world, and that if 30 days is fine, that sounds good to me. Just giving them an opportunity
Right.
that if you want these old rules, you better get.
Right,
your
at least you
permit.
got a heads up.
Does that
If they know.
make sense to you? Okay, so in that case, we would adopt it effective 30 days or something, or whatever the right.
You would adopt it on July the 9th, but it would go into effect at a future
August,
date, August 12th.
whatever.
Right.
And we can send a notice out to all the builders.
Okay, I'm good with that. That accomplishes what I was after. I just didn't want to, I just feel for those guys having to, if I bought a piece of property, do a
Re-engineer.
certain thing, and now I got to re-engineer the dang thing from what I was planning on doing. Right, because you changed the rules.
Hey, can we mind if I step back? I was just curious. So bumping it up to 100% for renovations. How are there any other communities that just don't even have a cap on that?
It seems like 50% is the rule that I'm most familiar with and seeing with
No,
communities.
and 50% typically applies for stuff that's out of our hands, like flood issues and stuff like that, correct? That 50% would stay, and that's not our decision.
Yes.
The reason I ask is, nevertheless, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, if you have a non-conforming structure, whether you do 50% or 100% with this, you still can't change the footprint of the building or add on, right? So you can't, if you've got a non-conforming single-floor structure, you can't add a second floor. Or
Correct.
can you?
No, I think it was limited in that you were just going to, or the intent was to renovate the existing structure.
Right.
Lot coverage.
I mean, I would almost be inclined to not even have a cap on that. And part of the reason I bring that up is because I've watched it. It's just so much silliness goes on with, like, what are they counting towards the 50% or the 100%? It just kind of gets,
What you're saying is they're
It's
limited
dumb.
by the structure anyway.
yeah, exactly.
Only so much you can do.
Yeah.
I would consider not even having a cap on it.
Well, we can move to 100 and see how that goes, and we can always change it.
Yeah.
I remember dealing with this, actually, in my olden days when I worked for Town of Carolina Beach, and they started going itemizing all the stuff, said, well, what counts as the 50%, right? And remember long ago, we determined, well, what does it take to get a CO, right? So the guy was like, all right, well, do I need kitchen cabinets to get a CO? And we're like, I guess not. And he's like, okay, well, I'm taking that off the cost of my renovation. Do I need to paint it to get a CO? No, he took, it was silly, and he was going down, just taking off all these items to get all the way down to 50%. Then he did his renovation, and like a week later came in with another permit to do some more work, because now I can do 50% again. It just gets silly. Like, why are we even playing these games? Maybe just not even have a cap.
We had a lot of these discussions at staff and planning board level. And I think it's always good to look at some examples too. Councilmember Hoffer is saying that 50% rule is very frustrating. But what you want to make sure you're, if you have an example, like if the house behind you is built on the property line and they're basically allowed to rebuild and make it bigger, and you had to meet all the setbacks, and now you've got this person who is built this monstrous structure right on top of you. Those are types of things, and there's lots of scenarios you can build that you want to be careful with before you make changes to those sections.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. Yeah, I think Mike's comment about if you're truly refurbishing an existing structure, non-conforming structure, which means it's the same footprint, same height, same general envelope, then that's okay.
Right.
But, you can't circumvent the setback rules is a good one, now build a 3-story structure by putting 2 stories on top of your non-conforming structure, and now you're looming over me on the property line with no setback. That's not cool.
Yeah, because your argument that it's still the same footprint, I just went up.
Right, yeah, that doesn't work, so. All right, anything else for Wes? Any questions?
I've got a comment. So in reading some of this data, it's amazing how much we've changed as a town in 5 years. And the parking, the golf cart parking stands out. 5 years ago, we had 4 golf cart parking spaces as a town. That was it. 4. And now we're going to 20%, which is just, we're growing, right? I do want to give a shout out to Wes and to planning and zoning. These meetings, Deb and I attended a bunch of these meetings, and they were either extremely boring or vibrant. Most of them were boring. But the detail, look at this thing. There's 300 pages. The detail that this group put into this was amazing. I mean, Lynn Conto's sitting back there with a smile on her face. I know what she is, because she's the queen of the comma, right?
Dot your
eyes,
cross
cross
your T's.
I've
Put
never
that-
seen anything like it. It was 50 times a meeting, but that's the purpose of doing it, right? I mean, there's a lot of work involved in that, but P&Z, they get a massive shout out for this.
100% agree.
Yeah, I second that.
Any other questions for Wes? So next steps are, this will come before our July meeting for adoption.
Public hearing.
And
Public
we'll have to
hearing.
decide when we want it to go into effect. Yeah, I just would second, I've watched this thing unfold in a tremendous amount of work. And I think that it's going to serve the public well, primarily because of a couple of reasons. One is we haven't been through all this on the whole in a long, long time. And then I would constantly hear from people that, your regulation in this section and your regulation in this section they wedge me in a corner, and I can't, there's no right answer because they conflict each other. This takes all that out, gone through the whole thing. So I think it'll be better for everybody. Appreciate what you've done, Wes. We really do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is the annual write-off of outstanding accounts receivables. Do we have a,
Yes, unfortunately, we didn't have this list together to put on the regular June council meeting as we normally would, so we're presenting this to you today. This is, of course, the debt that is 3 years old. So we just write that off, so we're not maintaining it on our books. But the majority of these have already been sent to debt set-off, and it will
Right.
stay with them until indefinitely. So if
so let me see if I can
someone-
remind myself of this process. So this is, for example, a person who hasn't paid their water bill. We found out that 90% of the time it's because they've passed away for most of
Yes.
them. And we're not stopping, it's been set off to collections or whatever the right term is. And they will continue to try to collect that debt from the state. This is just to take it off of our accounts receivable.
Right, right, so we're not continuing to let it compound. And this year's was a little bit higher because this was the COVID year where the state mandated that we couldn't do any cutoffs. So there was a lot of renters that just, kind of got behind and didn't pay.
Right.
They moved off the island, and so some of them, if you looked at the list, there was a little bit higher bills that they left than normal. So next year should be dropping back down to what we normally see.
So the 31,000 that I see tallied in the packet here, that is not a reflection on what the town still has in arrears for audit purposes. In other words, there's no impact on our,
Correct.
good,
Correct.
okay.
Yes,
And this is a matter of course for any municipality.
correct. So I would just need you to approve the resolution so that we'd be able to do the write-offs.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-2308 to authorize the writing off of uncollected utility accounts for the total write-off of $31,910.28. Motion on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
There you
Why's your address on here, Benson?
go. I was noticing Joe hadn't paid his water bill.
Jay still owes me gambling debt.
Let's see, next item was, the resolution, we took that off, on the abandoned vessels resolution. And item 5 is committee appointments, and I think I have those here. So this is our annual, we do make committee appointments, as positions open, but this is our annual where people roll, where their terms have expired. So Beautification Committee, I'll just read off the names: Emily Harding, Jelena Jones Shelley, Linda Bottoms, Sarah Finn, Scott Pate. Those 5 are actually currently serving, I believe, on the Beautification Committee, so that will renew them for 3 years. Kim? 3-year term? Okay, Bike Ped will be Rodney Kidd and Yvonne Bailey. They both are currently serving as well and will continue for another 3 years. Board of Adjustment will be David Marshall, is reappointed as the alternate. He's currently serving as the alternate. And Wayne Rouse and Dan Adams will assume positions on the Board of Adjustment. Bear with me. Marketing Committee, Jim Kitts and Lexi Pate. Both of them were recently appointed to marketing, so they will be reappointed for 3-year terms. Operations Committee, Cindy Dunn. Cindy was the alternate on Operations Committee, and she will assume a full position on that. Parks and Rec, Jessica Gwynn, who is also currently serving, was recently appointed in 21. She will be reappointed for a 3-year term. And Mike Matzinger will join the Parks and Rec Committee. Planning and Zoning, Melanie Boswell, who is currently serving on Planning and Zoning, she will continue for another 3-year term. Police Advisory, we have Alex Torres will be joining. I believe all of these will be new for Police Advisory. Alex Torres, Michael Lewis, and Roger Monk will join the Police Advocacy. Sorry, I
Just say PAC.
PAC. Old habits are hard to change. But anyway, just want to thank that whole group of people. As you saw today from the 3 committees who presented here, they do a lot of good work for the town. And it's a lot of time commitment from those folks, and we appreciate their efforts. And with that, council comments? Start with you, Mike? Or?
Sure. First, thanks for your service, Butch, on Operations Committee. We're sorry we had to boot you, buddy, but the rules are rules. And I want you to know there's a standing invitation for you to join the Friends of Parks and Greenways. They could use a good guy like you.
And his dues.
Yeah, we would like guys like you and your money, yeah. Well, it's not on the agenda, but I wanted to chat with Mr. Vince over there about e-bike enforcement. And what, just if you would care to tell us where you are.
So basically, we're not having problems with e-bikes. We're having problems with electric motorcycles. So what we're seeing is that the e-bikes are normally, if you got 10 e-bikes, probably 70% are ridden by adults, or when I say adults, over 20, 21 years old. It can be a young adult, but so the problems that we're having are the electric motorcycles, which are, a lot of them have pegs on them, but you're seeing 14, 15-year-olds on electric motorcycles that'll run, 45, 50 miles an hour. You've been on Dow Road. I've seen them on Dow Road. I mean, the kid's running at least 45 miles an hour. To his credit, he does have a helmet on. But the only problem is he has no license plate, he has no insurance, he has no registration. I mean, none of that stuff, and it's a problem. So, of course, we got e-bikes at the police department. We got 3 people that are certified on them. Sergeant McNeil rides them most of the time. The problems with those are multifaceted. The first thing is they're illegal for that young person to be on there. So you have a when you look at the 3 E's, you know, you got engineering, which we're not DOT, then you have education. Man, we've been hitting that hard. On social media posts, we've defined, you know, we've been working with the DA's office, kind of define the definition of a e-bike. We've educated people via social media posts. But the problem is, these are electric motorcycles, is what I'm talking about. So with the electric motorcycle, you do have teeth in that. You do have general statutes. It's not a town ordinance or anything like that. The issue is that if parents are buying their 14-year-old an electronic motorcycle, not thinking about it, not falling under the category of an e-bike, then they're violating North Carolina law. So then the problem with that is, if you get a hold of that juvenile or stop that juvenile or juveniles, man, what do you do with them? Well, you don't write them a ticket because they're a juvenile. So the law part of it is, man, you take out a juvenile petition on them, and you notify the court system, and then it goes through there, and it's kind of a rigmarole, to be honest with you. I mean, I've went through the juvenile court process up to and including death that a juvenile has caused. And most of the time, the way the judges look at it is they err to the side of they are juvenile. So they're going to give them pretty much the benefit of the doubt. You know, you're talking community service, you're talking something like that. My recommendation is, the last thing we want to do is be chasing around juveniles on electronic motorcycles. I think our time is better spent doing other things. The problem with that is, if there's a serious collision or a death, that's when that's when the focus is going to be on it. I've had a sergeant of mine get cussed out, literally by a parent, for stopping and telling one of those kids to get out of the road on North Lake Park Boulevard because they were in the middle of the road with no lights on, with no helmet on, riding one of these vehicles. And the parent just happened to be in the area, or the child called the parent. I can't remember specifics. But the parent came up, the mother came up and cussed out my officer, because to her the problem wasn't her 14-year-old being in the road on North Lake Park Boulevard with no lights, no helmet, getting ready to get killed. The problem was my officer talking to the child, trying to get the child out of the road and err on the side of safety. So that's another problem you deal with when you deal with the juveniles. So we've tried to attack this thing with everything that we know how to do. I'm not sure it's an easy solution to the problem, other than the fact that continue as much education as we can, but we're kind of left in a conundrum right now. You know, what do? You know, do we take out a juvenile petition on them? We've talked with the parents about it. Parents are going to have an issue if one of them get injured or killed, I can promise you that. They'll have an issue with that. But it's really a $5,000 toy that you're giving your child, and they're unsupervised, and you're sending them out. They're weaving in and out of traffic. I told you before, I've seen a kid probably running 35, 40 miles an hour on CB North, popping a wheelie. And it's just,
We all know him well.
and it's just,
Losing
I mean,
Carolina
it's, you know, he's gonna hit a pothole, or a pedestrian can walk out as they're going to the beach with the family, and the kids, I mean, you know, so you have to be Johnny on the spot. You know, they're taking them on the greenway. They're destroying property. They're setting fires, and, you know, we've had them set fires. We had 4 of them on one bike. We had them set fires in Matsu. You know, we called military, we called Sunny Point on them. Of course, they wanted us to deal with them, you know, because they're juveniles. And, you know, we did. I mean, we had them hemmed up on Ocean Boulevard, talked to them, called the parents out there. So I say all that to say I don't have a quick, easy solution to it, other than what I've told you. They're violating North Carolina general statute by being on an electronic motorcycle, not having it registered, insured, not having a motorcycle endorsement, the whole 9 yards. An adult would be in violation of that. I would be in violation riding an electronic motorcycle running 40 miles an hour if I didn't have a tag on it, didn't have my helmet, didn't have a motorcycle endorsement, insurance, the whole 9 yards. So think about a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old on it. And the only difference between me and the 14, 15-year-old, we're both violating general statute, but I'm going to get arrested or get a citation, and the juvenile's going to get somebody's going to take a juvenile petition on them. Now, there is another angle that we could charge the parents. by allowing an unauthorized driver to operate the vehicle. We've done that before. Like if me and you are buddies, and you say, "Hey Vic, can I borrow your truck to go down to the Quick Mart," and you get stopped and you don't have a driver's license. Well, man, I knowingly and authorized you to drive a vehicle, knowing my vehicle, that knowing you didn't have a driver's license, and I can get charged for that. So there's avenues on enforcement, but
You've never done that.
never done what?
Charged a parent.
Absolutely, we have. If it
have.
got down to that, my
but-
problem on highway patrol in my past life was four-wheelers.
No, but I mean, currently here in Carolina
Currently,
Beach.
we have not. Now, we have literally drove to the parents' house and had conversation with the parents. We have called the parents from the scene when we are dealing with the juveniles, and they've been told about it. So, I mean, we did the same thing when I was on highway patrol with four-wheelers. That used to be the gig. You know, four-wheelers driving in the middle of the road, we'd stop them. Man, I didn't want to charge the kid, you know, unless it was a serious collision or something happened. So I'd literally put them in a patrol car, take them to the parents' house, and 85–90% of the time that worked. You didn't deal with that kid again, but these bikes and these electronic motorcycles are the rage. But if you, it's easy to see, because if you see somebody running more than 28 miles an hour, man, they're on an electronic motorcycle. Yeah.
Because the comment, you know, I hear in my role, you know, I hear about this a lot, and there's the question I always get is, what are they doing about this? And look, I just want to be clear. I get it. Y'all can't be everywhere all the time. Whenever anybody, you know, sees somebody breaking the law, there's this assumption there should have been a police officer magically standing there, and I get it. But what can I say to people that y'all are doing? I mean, the kid with the kid doing the wheelie, he does the wheelie past a patrol car. Mm-hmm. What do you do?
Well, if he's decent bike rider, I'm never going to catch him. I mean, that's a quick answer to you. I mean, he can ride right here and pop a wheelie through this room. He can look at me and wave by. I'll never catch him. I won't catch him in a patrol car. I'm fast as I used to be probably 6 minutes ago, not 30 years ago. I'm sure not going to catch him on foot, and I'm not going to catch him on anything unless I'm you know, McNeil, and I'm sitting on an e-bike watching him, and then we might have a little bit of fun. But the problem you get into that, again, is the risk factor. He's weaving in and out of traffic. I'm in a truck or patrol car. Is it worth, is that juice worth the squeeze? Me risking his life, my life, the public's life, chasing an electronic motorcycle in and out of the street? I'd have a hard time articulating that to this council or somebody that gets injured or killed because I was chasing a 14-year-old on an electronic motorcycle. So that's the kind of stuff we think about.
Chief,
And
can I interrupt you a second? Could we impound these vehicles?
we have. We've seized them before.
So I think that may be the best course of action, is if we stop when you seize it, because it's unlicensed, it's not even registered, and it should be a registered vehicle. That seems like the best course of action right
How's that
now.
process work? If you seize it, then the parent has to come get it?
They do, and we had, you know, the one we seized, we had like 87 phone calls in 24 hours. Where's the bike, where's the bike, where's the bike, where's the bike, you know, and so we went through the rigmarole and ended up, you know, giving them the bike back or whatever. But I thought me and McNeil had a pretty long talk about this yesterday, because I knew I was going to be coming up here talking to the council. And, you know, we're always looking at strategies and, you know, what can we do to get ahead of it. This is a pickle, pretty much, in a nutshell. So it's, you know, seizing the vehicles is one alternative. It's going to be you know, again, the bottom line is this: the juvenile petition process is not going to change. So doing anything to the actual kid as far as punishment, you know, I'd love to have something where we could come up with maybe an ordinance potentially that really intensifies like community service for these kids. You know, letting them really, man, if they're bored and they really, you know, need to burn off some energy, man, they can, you know, clean the toilets and go around picking up the boardwalk trash and that kind of stuff, especially when they go out there and destroy property. I mean, you know, we try to, and these are some of the same kids. It is what it is. These are some of the same kids with the graffiti. These are some of the same kids that are riding through our flower plantings
This is
tearing
a
up.
parenting issue.
And they're being kids. I mean, they're kids. They're being kids, you know. So that would be one alternative that I think that may help out. But I'm telling you, it's not the kids. We're fighting the parents as much as we are the kids. Just to be honest with you,
That's usually
because it's.
the way they are.
I mean, it's
Until
what are you
one of
doing
these kids
messing
is
with
injured.
what are you doing messing
Yeah,
with Johnny?
and that'll be the
Whatever,
first
so.
parent who wants to sue the town or come scream at us
Absolutely.
because their kid was killed, or worse than killed, is severely injured,
And some of them may not
paralyzed.
know what they're buying. I mean, there's probably parents out there who just think they're getting an e-bike and the thing will run 45, 50 miles an hour, looks like an e-bike, you know, but they're not seeing what we're seeing and,
Right.
and dealing with stuff we're dealing with, so.
Chief, if Noel were here, I'd probably ask her about point of sale, something statutory that deals with point of sale and acknowledge and receipt of bike or motorcycle. Clearly stated as such, parents signing on to buy a motorcycle for somebody who's 13. But then that kicks it up to state legislation actions, if any. And I understand maybe I know they're trying to do the right thing, you know, and address the issue, mitigate the issue. Never going to go away, of course, but point of sale and then transfer property. It's almost like once you sell it and resell it and resell it, now we're back in the boats issue with maritime vessels.
I mean, I won't use the word solve, but I guess the word, mitigate. And that's what I'm saying, me. And it's, look, education, I'm out of answers there. I don't think it's all about enforcement. So I guess I just want to encourage you and your fellas not to let them ride on by. You can park in my driveway sometime if you want to keep an eye on them. That'll give the neighbors something to talk about.
And maybe that's it at the point of sale. Acknowledge that you're buying a motorcycle.
Right, but we're not going
Acknowledgement
to
of buying a
fix that because
motorcycle.
most of those are not bought here on the island.
I just don't think it's.
Well,
Chief,
wherever they're
Chief, I
bought.
would say, I think we understand the conundrum you're in. I don't like rulemaking because people don't raise their kids the way I would raise mine, right? I don't like making rules for parenting kids is tough, and we all do it differently, and we all have different rules. But at the same time, I'm not comfortable doing nothing, and just because a parent can't control their child, that child killing himself or someone else. So I would just say if there's anything that would be, certainly if Noel and Bruce and you got together and said, here's an ordinance that we think we could put some teeth in, if it was just confiscating, but whatever you guys think is enforceable, I'm certainly happy to consider that. I just don't know what that is, if it helps you. I agree where you are now. The juvenile petition process is just going to create a lot of paperwork for you guys, and it's not going to.
And I would think monetary fine and seizing of the vehicle would
Yeah.
help. And people would, one time they may say, it wouldn't wear them out, but hopefully it would send us a message, and then it would get out. It'd get out through the
Right.
channels. Hey, they seized Johnny's bike. They fined us $500. That stuff would get old real quick. And
Do you
they'll-
guys agree with that?
That
Bring
that's
us-
what we need to
Bring
be
us
doing.
something that we think is enforceable, and
And it can be damage to property. It doesn't have to be reckless driving and no helmet and driving in the middle of
Right.
the road. It
That's
can be,
probably
man,
more likely
if
to
we
be.
see one of them, driving through a flower bed or
Right.
or using that bike to engage in destruction of property or a hazard to the public, then I think that would fall under that umbrella.
right. And the little gang that hangs around at not at Mike's house, sorry, but that Mike's talking about, that's always in front of his house. I see them all the time, and the e-bike is not the only issue that we have with that crowd. I watched them address a 12-year-old young girl yesterday, and I won't repeat it. It was kind of disgusting, but I wasn't sure what to do, so I walked on by. But they're just hooligans. I don't know what else to call them. There's no amount of rules that's going to convince them to.
I just don't think the juvenile petition process is where it's at.
Right.
I don't think that's,
It's a parenting problem.
yes, sir.
In my mind.
I support impounding and going to the parents. I totally get, everybody wants you to be everywhere at all times, so the more paperwork you get yourself snarled up into, right, the less places you can be. I get it.
The only other thing I
Clear.
would say is maybe some signage, maybe some additional signage on the greenway. Again, we're gonna have to be there and put our eyes on it to do anything about it, but I think it's got no motorized vehicles when you look at the greenway, the sign out there, but on the sign, it actually displays a golf cart. If we could maybe, again, get together with Noel and see if we can verbiage that up a little bit better
Right.
to electric motorcycle, just something on there to kind of capture that as well. And then if we get them out there, hey, we're posted, you're aware of it, or you should have read it. In other words, we're just not going up there taking their vehicle.
Right.
They're saying, hey, man, it's posted, you can't be out here with that thing, and I think that'll eliminate some
Chief,
of it.
some people, and I don't know how this would even work, but I'm going to ask it only because it was asking me, is some people have wondered if, putting a speed limit, the problem with putting no e-bikes is you take the senior citizen who, or maybe not even senior, but somebody who's had medical issues or whatever, who's, the e-bike gets them back outdoors, able to ride their bike down the greenway that may not have been physically able to do it. If you remove it, you remove their access, which
I really don't think it's the e-bike problem.
Right.
I really don't.
But, so you're saying
Understand
make
what
the
you're saying.
signs to include, but the question that was asked was, do speed limits help or anything? Does that help you on the greenway? Like if you said, hey, nothing can go more than whatever, 20
No,
miles an hour?
I mean, it would something like that would fall under reckless driving.
Okay.
Unless we're using like a handheld LiDAR or something. I mean, we can't operate our vehicle out there and
Right.
something that's mounted, a speed measuring device. So it would have to be like a handheld LiDAR or something. And what's the chances of me having
Yeah.
an officer out there with a handheld
With it
LiDAR?
at the time they go by.
At the same time, Sir Jay rides by at 48 miles an hour on the greenway. I mean, I got a better chance of winning the lottery than I do
Right.
being in that particular situation.
Okay, so that would help you.
I've said this before. It's not a matter of there ought to be a law. There are laws. It's all there. It's just a matter of how we enforce it and
I mean,
what's
if
the
you're
most
running over
effective
28
way.
miles an hour, man, you're on an electronic motorcycle.
Well, Chief, I guess I would say I struggle because I think we need to do something, but at the same time, I understand what your officers really need to be doing instead of chasing kids around, right? There are much more important things in our community that need policing than these guys. So I hate it. It's such a distraction for you guys. But from our position, my thing is I just don't want to go to funerals.
Absolutely.
And it looks like we're heading that way. It certainly feels that way. Thank you, sir. Mike, anything else from you?
Yes, and thanks to everybody for going down that road again. I know it's never ending, but I do want to point out that, my God, it's loud down on the boardwalk. I mean, noise ordinances, do they apply to these rides? Can we please try to address that? I mean, it's ear splitting. Jay, you made a comment about that a little while ago. I mean, there's got to be a way. I mean, are we even asking? Like you said a little while ago, Lynn, you can always ask. Is anybody even reaching out to these guys and say, can you just please turn the volume down? Or, I've heard the complaints of the smutty lyrics. I can't say I've heard that, but it's rough. And please deal with that as best as you can, staff. And tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock is Bike Pedestrian Plan Update Steering Committee meeting. If anyone wants to stop out, 4 to 6 p.m. That's all.
Joe?
The Sunny Point change of command is next, is the 2nd, July 2nd? Okay. So Colonel Blanketer leaves and moves on to greener pastures at 9 o'clock, correct? I think we've got notification. Okay. Yeah, look forward to that.
Thank you for reminding me, Joe. I forgot about that.
It's not on the grounds there. They're having it at an off-site, Bolivia maybe?
Fort Johnson in Southport, I believe. The change of the guard. Pretty certain that's where they're holding the ceremony.
All right, I need to get that on my calendar. Thank you, Joe. Anything else, Joe? Deb?
2 items, Mayor. Matt Hamlet reached out to me regarding putting something similar to the Good Karma Pantry for pet supplies at the dog park. And I reached out to Eric, and he says there is a space out there we could put that. I just need some okay from council for Matt to kind of pursue that. It would all be private funding. He would raise the funds through the Carolina Beach Bar Club. But to put something similar to the Good Pantry out there for pet supplies.
So this would just be that little,
It'd be just
similar little cabinet or something?
Yep.
Do we have any concerns with that, Bruce? Can't think of any reason. I'm
Okay.
okay with it. Sounds
All
good.
right. All right. The other thing is, we have some new members now on Board of Adjustments. Planning and zoning will stay the same and council's the same. But I would like to ask that we do some more training with Wes for quasi judicial and make sure there's a good understanding of how that process works, what the role is of Board of Adjustments, Planning and Zoning, and Council, how it all fits in. Now that we're doing the UDO, I think that's important that we put some guidelines in and have them understand them. And also, along with that request that the alternate that we had to leave on Board of Adjustments attend those meetings so they have a good understanding how the meetings operate in case they ever have to sit in.
That's a good point. My understanding is the alternate, and this is nothing about the person, but traditionally the alternate has not attended meetings that they weren't required. It seems like the alternate ought to be there at every meeting because of the,
Absolutely.
there's
That's
so
the
much
only,
learning.
that's the only board that we have an alternate on because it's required, because of the way the vote has to happen. And I think that person needs to attend so they understand how the meetings work.
So the alternate would have to meet the same attendance requirements as any
Yes.
other member.
Yes.
Is that, you need something from us on that, or is that okay? Yeah,
We
I just,
needed the alternate at one point, didn't we, recently?
Well, the alternate's required for Board
No,
of
but I'm-
Adjustments according
Yeah, I
to.
think-
For the vote.
the thing that Deb's talking about, though, is if you have an alternate, but they're not, the Board of Adjustment literally can go a year or more without having a meeting. And then have 4 meetings really quick because as issues come up. And if the alternate has not attended any meetings, they could be the alternate for 2 years and never even been in a meeting. But then suddenly they're needed and they
to
don't,
vote, and be-
and now they gotta vote.
Well,
understand.
and I'll just use the example that I was given that happened when we did have training for Board of Adjustments and some planning and zoning members attended. The question came up, so, well, if we make a decision, council can go back and change that. Well, no, that's not how that works. The Board of Adjustments is your final stop before Superior Court. We have no say after Board of Adjustments has made a decision. So that person had no idea that they were.
Yeah, they
The
thought they were
buck
an
stops here,
advisory
okay?
board, but they're not.
So I just think it's very important, especially with, those are the 2 most important boards that we have. Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustments. So I just think there needs to be, you need training. You can't just be put on one of those boards. So
100% agree. So,
That's all I had
so
to-
normally you do that, right, Jeremy? Will you hold training for them again? Because you got 2 new members. Well, Wayne's coming off of, so he has quasi
And he was
judicial
at, and
background.
he actually was at the last training for Board
But
of
you'll need to
Adjustment.
do it for, who was the other person? Dan?
But we'll,
Dan Adams.
and we invite all the, new members in and give them orientation and tell them about the process. And but we, still like to schedule.
Yeah, I'll say, coming on to council, quasi judicial hearings are one of the most misunderstood things that we fight with, right? I mean, because, the public thinks that we can sit up here in these public hearings and just do whatever we want, and that's not how the process works. And the same is for those guys. It's not, until you've participated in it, it's non-trivial.
Well, when Wayne and I were appointed, because Wayne and I were appointed at the same time to Planning and Zoning, we actually went to a class that was given by COG to teach us about quasi-judicial. They actually gave us a textbook too. So I
Right.
still have that textbook. I just think it's important these people understand what they're doing. And like I said, the alternate needs to have the same training and needs to be at those meetings. Just my opinion.
I agree. All right, so, Jay?
A couple things. I just have to get off my chest. And I want to talk about the committee appointments. I want to congratulate everybody that was appointed. I do think it is town council's responsibility to choose the right person for whatever committee that they're voted on. And I'm perplexed at how we can vote someone on that is so negative with the town. I just don't understand that piece, and I just want it to go on record. We just have to do the right thing for what's the town, and I'm not sure if we made some great decisions today. That's all I'm saying. Next thing is, I do want to talk about the noise down at the carnival. It's unbelievable, and I would like to take a look at the noise ordinance, what we can do to solve that. Also, I would like to take a look at, and now I brought this up in the past about shade down there. It is hot. Those bands right now are sweating like dogs. And if we can get some type of shade sails that we can take up and down, I think it would be awesome. I don't think it'd be a very large expenditure, but we need to protect the people playing music and the people sitting there. That's all I have.
So I guess I'm last. I don't have anything major. I am getting tons of complaints about that area from residents. I don't think residents are real happy with the way that whole area is played out. I'll reserve comments on my own opinions, but it's very crowded. It's very loud. It's very bright. It's not. It's beginning to remind me of what we didn't want it to be when I was younger. Right? It's not. It doesn't feel very welcoming, in my opinion. I'll just leave it at that. So that's the end of council comments. Now we're going to go into closed session. So motion to go into closed session in accordance to NCGS 143-318.11A6 to discuss a personnel matter. And thank you guys for coming. Oh, motion. Motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
I skipped that part.